Jordan, do you think we can start?
Let's begin.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. Okay. Jordan, everyone is on the room. Yes, so we can start. Hi, everyone. My name is Jean-Christophe Carteron, and I'm the president of Solites Movement, but I am also the co-chair of HESI with you and DESA. And I'm absolutely delighted to welcome all of you today for this second HESI webinar in 2023, which, as you know, will be dedicated to Green Job. After this short welcome, I will unfortunately have to leave. Oh gosh, I will have to leave right after, because in less than an hour with Solites, we are launching the assessment for sustainability task, which is a new international assessment to make sustainability mainstream. So sorry for that. But for HESI, as you probably know, the Higher Education Sustainability Initiative is an open partnership between several UN entities and the higher education community. We've launched HESI just before Rio Plus 20 conference in 2012. And since that moment, HESI aims to provide an interface between higher education, science, and policy making by highlighting the higher education sector in support of development. We organize multi-stakeholder decision. We, of course, share best practices. To date, we have 4 working groups, which are doing a non-starting work. The most recent one is HESI Partner Program, which aims to create shared learning community to support the integration of the SDG into the world school curricular research program and campuses. And of course, to facilitate knowledge transfer. We have the famous ranking, rating, and assessment working group, which works pretty well with all the big ranking and rating worldwide. We have the SDG Publisher Compact, which Deborah also co-leads, and of course, the Education for Green Job initiative that you are going to talk about today. It's really exciting to see all the progress that have been made since the beginning within this Education for Green Job Action Group. So on behalf of HESI, I really would like to thank Deborah and the entire team, and all of you, of course, for involvement. Sorry. And I wish you a very productive webinar. Have a nice day. Thanks.
Thank you so much, and welcome everybody. We're really excited about the materials that we have to share today, and there is a lot. So let's get going. So let me start with this. We really like to think of this as a solution summit. We've had a series of solution summits over time, and this is one in that series. So welcome. We're focusing today on education for green jobs with solutions related to recruitment, career advising, employee placement and retention, and more curricula. And you can see it comes from HESI, although the Green Jobs Initiative started out of the UNEP Yay office, and they're one of the members of HESI, and we have a platform for you. You'll hear about the Green Learning Network. So we want to start out with, please put into the chat your role, your organization, and your country, so that we can understand who's here today. And then we will go over what's the real problem and challenge we're trying to solve, what are the solutions, and then we have a great panel of speakers. We'll give you some of the solutions we have in the resource sharing, but we'll also be collecting your thoughts on this, sharing them with each other. We'll talk about a fellows opportunity, a platform we have for you so you can communicate with each other asynchronously and share resources, how to become part of a virtual community, and then next steps for all of us. And we will have questions and answers. And I want to thank Evie, who co-chairs this group with me, and just puts in a lot of time. So we're going to start with a poll. As you put into the chat your role, your organization, and your country, we also want to show it as poll results. So here's the first poll. What is your role as it relates to education for green jobs? So Jordan, can I ask you to launch that? And if all of you here today could fill in just a quick answer and then go back to putting your descriptions of yourselves into the chat, that would be great. We'll give you time to do it, just about 30 seconds. Once again, if you could fill in this poll first and then go back to the chat. We've got about 27 people who've answered, 29. Let's see if we can get this up to 60 or 70 in the next few seconds. I'm just going to give you another 15 seconds. So fill this in, this poll, because we have so much to share today. Okay, so it won't be fully representative, but it will give us a taste. Can we go ahead and let's see what the results are of this poll with about 40 people in it? So Jordan, can you share the results of the poll?
It says it's sharing. Can you not see?
No, I can just see the question.
How about now?
We see how many participated. So here we go. There we go. So I see their role. Nope, it gives me, right, I'm going to close this one up. Maybe, I don't know, you can get to that screen and share it. But in the meantime, we will go to the second poll. Sorry for the technical glitch. Keep putting your intros into the chat, please, so that you can understand by reading those who's here. And then for the educators, we have a second poll. Jordan, can you launch that? How are you currently working with the private sector and better understanding the skilling needs for the green transition? And Jordan, you're the one who shares the results of the polls, correct?
Yes, it says that it's sharing. I'm wondering if you can't see because you're a co-host.
That could be. That could be. Although I could do it when we tested it earlier. So we'll see.
Can you see it now?
What I can see now is the question with a place to submit an answer.
Yes. We'll see if
So-
this one works.
So all of you, if you could go ahead and put in your answers. If you're educators, how are you working with the private sector to better understand the skilling needs for the green transition? And I know it's not only the private sector that employs people, governments employ people, nonprofits employ people. So if you've gotten insights into skilling needs from those sectors as well, you can put that in. But we want to know how you're communicating with them. How are you working with them? How are you reaching out to them? So that we've got a good list. Okay, Jordan, how many have answered so far?
We have 21 answers. And thank you to everyone in the chat who's saying that it doesn't share unless it's multiple choice.
Thank you. All right, so can we see the responses to that now?
I don't think so until after.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and give it another 10 seconds because we have so much to go over today. And I want to make sure we have time at the end for your questions and answers. And you can put your questions in along the way in the Q&A. So we may be able to build it into what we do. And let's complete the poll now. And can you share the responses? So people in the chat, let me know, can you see those responses? Because I cannot. Okay, glitchy polls today. So yes, we do have plans to share the essential information that's in the chat and to share it out. And can you see the response to this poll or no? Poll results are not visible.
Can you see
Okay.
now? I've just shared it on my screen.
Yes, that we can see.
Yeah.
So this is now how people responded. Oh, great. Let's scroll slowly so people can read it. Through sectoral and regional professional networks, digital hubs, not currently working with them, following job boards. We want to know whether there's demand, career fairs. Some of them come to us. Local relationships we've built. Groups like Institute for Student Employers, Community Services, you create workshops. Working with academic publishers. Okay, so these are some good answers. Thank you so much. And I need for you to stop sharing so I can continue with sharing my slides so we can continue. Thank you, Jordan. And thanks everybody for those answers. All right. So moving on from those polls, a lot of organizations have helped with the initiation of the Education for Green Jobs action team. And you can see a number of them here on the left, but also we created a global guidance document. And the global guidance document had reviewers who shared resources from multiple UN agencies, as you can see, and other organizations. So a lot of great people, experts, organizations weighing in on this Education for Green Jobs. Now, I have a number of slides here that I'm not going to go through all the details. I put them on so that you'll see that you'll have access to these slides afterwards. We're going to do a slide deck with everybody's slides. So I'm just going to hit some highlights. We all know we have a code red for humanity. I've been working on climate change for 42 years. Many of you have as well. And we have a deadline, a looming deadline. If we want to take our last shot at stabilizing climate, look at the last bullet point. Scientists say we need a 50% reduction in greenhouse gases by 2030. And if we don't stabilize climate, this is the world that we're moving into, and we're already experiencing it. Catastrophic weather, wildfires, droughts, crop failures, diseases that are spreading, not just economic and environmental disruption, but many would say civilization disruption. So we've got to take this shot at stabilizing climate by reducing greenhouse gases 50% by 2030. We can do it with already cost-effective technologies, but we have to move faster than we're moving now. And many of our job descriptions don't include this, but really it's in everybody's job description now, given this urgency. So 80% of the planet's population has already been impacted, and the Princeton study shows that just looking at heat and humidity alone, over 3 billion people's lives are at stake, that they just may not be able to live where they're living now. So before we get into the crisis mode, where we are, and many already are in many parts of the world, can we do this climate mitigation to reduce the worst impacts of climate change? So in order to do that, we have to prioritize workers. We have to make them available to the clean energy and green economy employers. We need to, along the way, also create the workers for adaptation to reduce unnecessary human suffering. But the clean energy and other green economy employers are extremely busy. So the essential problem is that it's difficult to connect students and potential employees with these companies. We have thousands of technical institutions and universities and nonprofits, and many of those organizations have their own job placement, interviewing, recruitment kinds of processes, many times with their own web pages and passwords and deadlines. And the clean energy companies and green economy employers just don't have time to deal with the glitchiness of all of that. So it's our opportunity to roll out the red carpet, so to speak, to streamline these processes, because otherwise this isn't going to happen. So the solution is HESI, and before that, and still ongoing, UNEP-YA's Green Job Initiative, focus on how to help employers meet workforce needs more effectively. Your participation is needed to implement these solutions. And we're looking at improving student recruitment into the field, placements with them, with employers, employee placements and their retention, curricular upgrades, and also aligning research to not just the climate, but also the other sustainable development goals. So the components of the initiative to get to those outcomes is we have been convening educators, career advisors, employers, policymakers, publishers, and other related stakeholders. We convene them separately. We are convening them together. We had last year a June and a November Solutions Summit. This was part of this series we've talked about. And at the end of today's summit, we want to hear which solutions you're going to use. So please, as you take notes about what you're going to do next, then we want to hear it. So the crucial problem to be solved is how can we help the crucially important clean energy and green economy employers quickly find the workers that they need? And who can create the solutions? All of these groups, and basically all of you in this meeting. So if I missed a group that you belong to, you're in under other related stakeholders. Thank you for being here today, or if you're watching the recording, for watching the recording. So we're going to start with a panel of speakers, and then I have a number of other slides with resources and questions for you. So right now I'm going to hand it over to Evie Mengelko. She's the co-chair with me of the Green Jobs Action Group at HESI, but also she's going to be talking about youth coalitions. And then Noemi may be here from UNEP. And then we have Daniel Dang from Solar Power Europe. We have Sama from the International Renewable Energy Agency, Lorjan, who runs the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance in the US, and Laura, who comes to us from UNEP about sustainable lifestyles. So we've got a great lineup, and Evie, over to you.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. My name's Evie Mengelko. I'm representing the Youth for Climate Education Coalition today. So why do we focus on climate education? According to UNESCO, only 3% of people attend university, but 80% of people in leadership positions have been to university. So obviously this is a discrepancy that must be addressed, and current trends show the importance of climate education. So students must be educated on climate impacts and solutions in university, because education carries over to leadership positions and informs their decision-making. And countries with lower university attendance tend to be countries that are most impacted by climate change, and similarly, countries with higher rates of university attendance tend to be least impacted by climate change. So students who are more likely to attend university, who are less likely to feel the impacts of climate change, must be educated in university or other formal education to be able to carry the knowledge of those impacts over to their decision-making. And climate education is often isolated to basic education on the causes of climate change in primary and secondary education. And then that doesn't go more in depth until post-secondary levels, where it's still largely isolated to environmental studies and sustainability majors. All academic disciplines can contribute to climate solutions, and climate education should be integrated into all disciplines. If students are educated on climate impacts, they often aren't educated on the urgently needed climate solutions. All students need education on the necessary adaptation mitigation strategies and ways to politically advocate for their communities and beyond. So this is especially necessary in communities that are most impacted by climate change. And climate education is also largely isolated to students in traditional education, which makes it not accessible to school-age youth that are unable to access education. So what has the Youth for Climate Education Coalition accomplished so far? It originated as an initiative of students organizing for Sustainability International with prior support from UNEP. And from that, it created a manifesto of asks for educators and policymakers to help create more accessible and complete climate education for all students worldwide. It continues to distribute the manifesto to policymakers through its coalition partners, and it holds bi-weekly meetings with participants from a wide variety of countries, representing both the global north and the global south, to continue advocating for climate education and amplifying related efforts. More recently, it's joined the Climate Education Coalition, that is an initiative of earthday.org, similar name with similar goals, but different coalitions prior to COP27. And from that, it's distributing an aligned open letter of climate education asks to national educational environmental policymakers and the COP28 presidency. So the Youth for Climate Education Coalition Manifesto has 6 asks for global leaders. The first is to build networks across ministries and between countries to make communication between policymakers more effective and to include context-sensitive implementation of climate education in the curriculum. It asks to empower educators to teach climate education across all levels and to integrate climate education across curricula in all disciplines. It asks to decolonize the curriculum and to decarbonize buildings to reduce emissions and shape the informal curriculum, which will provide more real-life examples of what climate education can accomplish. And it asks to empower students to lead on addressing the climate emergency. And through the earthday.org Climate Education Coalition, it's asking the COP28 presidency to establish climate education as one of the focal points of negotiations, to assess and fully integrate K-12 climate education into national curricula with an emphasis on building civic skills, fostering entrepreneurship and creating jobs, and with a designated fund for this purpose. And it also asks to organize a high-level ministerial session to highlight the significance of climate education and to give it the attention it needs. And for ministers of education and environment from UN member states, the open letter has an ask to include detailed education about the origins, progressions, consequences, and solutions of the climate crisis to fully inform everyone who is impacted by it, which is everyone. And it asks to empower younger generations and vulnerable communities with the necessary tools that they need to tackle climate change and to advocate for themselves. So how can you join the virtual community on youth? The Youth for Climate Education Coalition, which is up to 35. I'll put this link in the chat below, and you can join the Google group. You'll receive invitations to the bi-weekly meetings, and from there you can join our WhatsApp group for both the Youth for Climate Education Coalition and the earthday.org Climate Education Coalition. So thank you. Here's my email. I'll also put that in the chat for any concerns or questions, and I'll pass it back to Deb.
Thank you so very much. That's just great. Really appreciate the information that you shared. And so now we're going to move on, and Noemi is not here. Oh, she is here. Okay,
here.
great. So Noemi, if you want to share your slides and tell us about the Green Jobs Pact and what's going on at UNEP.
Sure, thanks, Deb. Can you see my screen?
We can. I think you've got to go to full view mode. Yeah.
Oh my God, sorry.
There we go.
Starting from the beginning. Okay, thank you all. Thank you for this opportunity. So the Green Jobs for Youth Pact increases commitments and accelerates actions towards green jobs creation. So it was launched at COP27, and it focuses on high impact and climate vulnerable sectors. And it has a focus especially on youth from the most disadvantaged and climate vulnerable groups. So I am going to lead you through this presentation. So we're first with an introduction of the pact, then I'll deep dive on the youth advisory group of the pact, and how do we see stakeholder engagement. So why should we focus on green jobs? I think we all know why, but nearly all jobs must evolve now. And from the LinkedIn report that came out last year, we can see that there's still a skill gap when it comes through the green skilling, and there's mismatch between the demand and the offer. So basically, this slide is just showing that if investments aimed at reaching net zero carbon by 2050 in some specific sectors were done, they would have the potential to create 8.4 million jobs for young people by 2030. I'm sure there's even more. So the Green Jobs for Youth Pact, as I was mentioning, is an alliance between the UN Environment Programme, UNICEF, and ILO. It really builds on existing programs that are led by the 3 different agencies to leverage the work that is undertaken and to see a kind of glue between the different agencies to make sure that we take advantage of the existing networks, for UNEP being higher education networks, for ILO being also the network they have with companies and states, and for UNICEF being with entrepreneurs and youth. So we focus on 3 different objectives that are creating new green jobs with existing companies, as well as accelerate the greening of 1 million existing jobs and supporting 10,000 green entrepreneurs. So the one I wanted to focus on today for us all is also the accelerating greening of million jobs, because I think it will definitely include informal education system, but also a non-formal education system, the upskilling of students for them to be agents of change. So the Green Jobs for Youth Pact focuses on 3 different E's, which is employment creation, as well as education and green skills, and empowerment and youth engagement. On education and green skills, it's to make sure, as I was mentioning before, that education institutions equip the young people with employable, including technical and core skills for green jobs, so that they become either entrepreneurs, but also intrapreneurs, so entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs for the green transition. So for the Green Jobs for Youth Pact, there is a youth advisory group that is informing and guiding the design of the initiative, as it's for with and for youth. These youth come from different backgrounds, from UN consistencies, but also from organizations, to make sure that they really represent the different stakeholders that would be joining the pact. So as I was mentioning, the pact is in order to enhance collaboration between workers, education partners, governments, and having youth at the core center. And for example, when it comes to the representation of education partners, we have Zanzam Ibrahim, that is from the Students' Organization for Sustainability. These youth are there at the beginning, but really their aim is to make sure that they engage with youth from more climate vulnerable backgrounds, and they have this mission to reach out to other youth groups. And they really have the mission also, as I was saying, to work on program development, communication and advocacy, and advise the rolling out of the Green Jobs for Youth Pact. So to go more in depth and see how are we going to do that? So the aim, I was saying, is working with the different partners, and we would like to engage governments. So we've been talking after COP27, where we had speakers such as from the Argentinian government, as well as the UK government. And we really want to, and we've been talking to the EU with the EU Year of Skills that is coming up. And we really want to push governments to make sure that they work on youth employment and climate education policies, as well as enhanced research to make sure that there's more of a match between the needs and demand, that they embrace their advocacy power to make sure that the stakeholders join the Green Jobs for Youth Pact, as well as work on this green transition together, and that they can support the pact as well. When it comes to the private sector, as I was saying before, we work with big tech partners that have shown a lot of interest on this topic, being Google, LinkedIn, Iberdrola, PwC, and Accenture, that really want to accelerate the greening of the workforce. So this is one of the folds that we would like to work on through mentorship programs and skilling and reskilling initiatives. Also for them to green their activities, to develop a future-proof institution, to work on develop circular approaches. And we really want companies to embrace again the power to share and report on the commitments that they would do for the pact, as well as inspire others in the community to act. focus today that I would like to really put emphasis on is for education partners. We really want to accompany you in the journey. Deborah has already been doing great work when it comes to the green jobs development on the UNEP side. And we really want to continue this work to make sure that we understand your needs and to make sure that we understand what are the best practices on the market, what are the challenges. So these are 4 steps, but there are many more to work on green career pathways and train career advisors as well as teachers to audit yearly your green skill offer and to make sure also that you develop some partnerships with private enterprises to understand more the market demand, as well with public actors to understand more how you can work on policy engagement. And of course, to be a front runner in your community to work with the different actors and as well as the youth and the students. So thank you very much for this. I was just going to end by saying that there's 2 folds in the Green Jobs for Youth Pact. There's a very global action. So we've been doing, again, a lot with Deb already and working with these big companies, with education partners all over the world and governments. But there will also be some programs that will be more of a regional rollout. We would like to focus at first on entrepreneurship. And we will also organize some workshops with education partners in India and Kenya at first, to better understand the needs and to make sure that we, step by step, the UN can support at a country level, regional level, and global level to accelerate on this agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And if there's any particular links that they can, if you can put them in the chat, maybe that would be great so they can stay up to date. So now that's a very high level, right, kind of program. And so what we want to do now is give you a very practical tool. And it's brought to us by employers and the trade association, which is wonderful. So you'll be able to help students find the jobs and help employers get the employees they need. So we move to Daniel Dang. Thank you so much, Naomi, for that great work. Daniel is the Director of Business Development at Solar Power Europe, but what he has created isn't just for Europe, it's for the whole world. Daniel?
Thank you, Deborah, for this kind introduction. I'm sharing now my screen. Okay, I hope
You are?
you can see it now.
Yes.
Perfect. My name is Daniel Dank, and I'm the Director of Business Development at Solar Power Europe. Before I start, just a few words about our organization. Solar Power Europe is the European Solar Association. We are a trade association, and we represent the entire solar value chain. That includes companies, that includes research centers, national associations, but also non-profit organizations are a part of Solar Power Europe. Now, we believe that climate change is perhaps the biggest challenge for our generation and for the generation after us. And we believe that solar can play a huge role in helping tackle climate change. Now, solar can potentially create up to 4 million jobs by 2050, and this is only Europe. We believe that globally this can be tripled, if not quadrupled by 2050. Now, we started our work on the topic of jobs and the topic of skills in 2021 by creating an awareness campaign together with Google and the Google Skills Initiative to really allow some of the workers in solar share their stories, what motivated them to join the sector, what are the skills that they have now that help them find a job, what are the skills that they didn't have when they were looking for a job in solar. And we really wanted to start with some motivational videos and creating basically a nice story around some of the heroes in the sector that are already contributing with the fight of climate change. Now, this was obviously not enough for us. This was just a starting point. We realized that, in fact, we need a lot more coordinated effort in Europe, but also globally. We wanted to understand what are the existing training and education options that are targeting the skills gap, because we know that there's a lot of interest. We know that there's a lot of opportunities in solar, but we really didn't know what are the options for people to train, what are the options for people to take courses in universities or other education providers. we also wanted to understand how the policy framework can speed the creation of trainings, can speed up basically the creation of various education programs for people who want to work in the industry, but really be aligned, this to be aligned with the industry needs. At the same time, we do believe that there's a need for incentives for universities and other education institutions to create programs that are addressing the specific skills gap. And last but not least, we do need this very fast. Now, how are we contributing directly as Solar Power Europe? Now, the first thing that we do is an annual jobs report. This is a quantitative analysis of the number of jobs that exist in solar, how this is growing over time, our focus of the different segments and how these segments will evolve over time, and the jobs that they will be creating. At the same time, we felt that this is not enough. This is just a quantitative analysis of number of jobs. Therefore, we are launching now on the 9th of March, a jobs guide, which is a qualitative analysis of the solar sector from the perspective of the skills that are needed by the sector, the types of jobs that are needed per segment, and even looking into some of the soft skills that are needed for our sector. This is the culmination of 1 year of work with many of the members of Solar Power Europe. As I said, this includes companies, this includes national associations, solar, but also renewable energy associations, research centers, and others. And the idea is really to shed a light on the exact skills that the industry needs and the companies actually really need. Now, in addition to this, we have an annual online job fair. The first edition was last year in December. We're very happy that we had over 100 companies actually attending there, plus around 300 job seekers who joined us for the first time in December last year. It is an opportunity to connect job seekers and job providers online and create a dialogue between them. Now, at the same time, we know that policy plays a key role in everything we do. Therefore, Solar Power Europe is also very much active in the policy creation in Europe specifically. We are supporting the European Year of Skills. We are part of the Pact for Skills, but we're also part of the Onshore Renewable Skills Partnership, which essentially will be looking into creating a roadmap for initiatives on the education and training side, but also in terms of understanding what are the needs of the sector to close the skills gap. At the same time, we're also working on European projects. We really focusing on also helping creating direct trainings in solar. One of the elements that we can highlight is really the work that we do on building integrated PV, because we know this is a sector that specific segment that will require specific skills and workers to help us with the rooftop solar opportunity that we see. And at the same time, we're also raising a lot of awareness in our events. Just recently, we had a solar quality event in Barcelona. We have a solar power summit in March, and we have a sustainability event in the end of the year, where we are really creating a dialogue between industry policymakers and job seekers. Now, just a few words about the Solar Jobs platform that we launched in the end of last year. It is a platform that connects 3 types of stakeholders: people who want to work in solar, training providers, and companies who are offering jobs in solar. And we're talking about global opportunities. The idea of the platform is that it matches the skills of the job seekers with the skills that are looked after by the solar companies. And if there's a mismatch, the potential job seekers are pushed specific trainings that we believe can help them close basically the skill gap and help them get better profiles and better chance to work for some of the solar companies that are offering jobs. We want to develop this tool over the next few years and collect information so that we not only know from the solar companies what are the types of jobs and skills that they need, but also to understand from the people who want to work in solar what do they miss in terms of skills, and provide this information for free to education providers, to obviously universities, to training providers, so that they can create targeted courses, they can create targeted trainings that can really help the job seekers of tomorrow and today. This is just a sneak peek of how the platform works. If you're interested in understanding a little bit more what the platform is, how it can help, please visit solarworksplatform.org or reach out to me directly. And just a shout out to some of the partners that we have already, that we're working with very closely. This includes the Technical University, the Bath University, Google, INES, SolarMax Academy, UB Business School, and the University of Edinburgh. We're very much looking forward to creating even more meaningful partnerships. And if you are an education provider, if you're a nonprofit organization, a solar company, a government institution, please do reach out to us, because we really want to continue our work on creating the right curriculum for jobs in solar, but also in renewables, and help close the skill gap. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions or comments, I'll leave my contact details in the chat, and happy to continue this conversation further after the webinar. Thank you.
So doesn't that sound practical, like useful? And you can go ahead and use the platform and can contribute to the overall initiative. Thank you so very much for that information. I'm going to keep moving because we've got a lot here to share. And next is my dear colleague, Sama El Sayed. She's the program officer of Renewable Energy Education at the International Renewable Energy Agency. It's all yours, Sama. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Deborah. And it's a pleasure to join you all today for this webinar. So for those of you who aren't familiar with IRENA, we're an intergovernmental organization. We support countries in their transition to a sustainable energy future. And of course, a big part of that is looking at some of the socioeconomic implications of the energy transition. What does this mean for jobs, for GDP, for welfare, and what type of policies are needed? And so I'm a member of what we call our socioeconomic policy unit, and a big part of our work is looking at the job creation along the renewable energy value chain. And in the past, we've published a series of reports that look at different technologies and what are the implications for job creation for each of these technologies. So how many jobs are being created at each point of the value chain? What type of jobs are these? What skills are needed? And so if you want to delve deeper into this, we do have a series of reports, and I've got some of the covers on the side here that you can look at a bit further. But I think one of the really important points that comes out of these reports is there's a tendency to think about renewable energy jobs as STEM jobs. And of course, these are a significant number of the jobs, but of course, there are other types of jobs that are being created, and so other types of skills that are needed. And I think given that most of you on this call are educators or coming from higher education institutions, it's really important to remember that no matter which discipline you're coming from, which department you're coming from, there is a place to ensure that green skills, that renewable energy skills, that sustainability skills are a part of what you're teaching within your program. So we need the policymakers, we need the business people, the entrepreneurs, the financiers, the designers, the legal minds. So there are many different types of jobs being created. So one of the reports that we produced looks at renewable energy jobs, and we have an annual review, and we found that in 2021 there were 12.7 million jobs in the renewable energy sector. If we put in place all the policies that are needed to achieve a 1.5 degree compliant pathway by 2050, there could be as many as 122 million energy transition jobs. And so this includes 43 million jobs in renewable energy, as well as other transition related jobs in areas such as energy efficiency and power system flexibility. So there are a lot of jobs that are being created. And so, of course, we need to build the human resource capacity to meet this need and to meet the ambitious energy targets that countries are setting. And just one point that I want to make is we also have a series of reports that look at women in renewable energy, and particularly women in renewable energy jobs. And one of the findings is that women represent only 32% of the renewable energy sector. And so this is higher than the average of 22% in oil and gas, but of course we still have quite a long way to go to achieving gender parity, and especially in some sectors like wind, women are particularly underrepresented at 21%, whereas in solar PV, women are faring better at 40% representation. And I think if we wait until women are already entering the workforce, then we're already too late. So efforts really need to start earlier. They need to start within education to ensure that women are getting the skills that they need to enter the sector. So last year at COP, IRENA, in collaboration with the government of the United Arab Emirates and other key partners, launched a new partnership, the Energy Transition Education Network. And I know you're hearing about several different partnerships today, and of course all of these are, I think, quite related, and they really complement each other. This partnership focuses specifically on bringing together institutions at the forefront of education and energy. And so this includes educational institutions, but also governments and private sector. And there are a few focus areas, including developing and sharing curriculum resources, exchanging and promoting best practices, and engaging in joint capacity building activities, as well as contributing to analytical activities on skills gaps. And one of the big focuses is on capacity building for educators. And so in the build up to COP28, since UAE is one of the core partners, we're launching a campaign aimed at educators to showcase good practices in climate and energy education. So do please keep an eye out for this. There'll also be a series of training activities aimed at educators taking a training of trainers approach, and we'll be releasing soon a teacher resource pack with classroom activities, initially focusing on K through 12 education, but there'll also be some materials that can be used by higher education as well. And in the future, we're planning an upcoming focus on developing open access teaching modules for higher education too. And related to this, we're working on a career guide that will be released in the coming months in partnership with NL Foundation, but looks at all of the jobs that are in the energy transition and the implications for skills. And we also have, an important focus on young people, and youth can play an important role in being peer educators. And so we have something called our iAct initiative. And this is a toolkit with presentation materials, talking points, and workshop activities that can be used by young people to deliver workshops and trainings within their communities. And so we're in the process now of selecting young people to be the first batch of iAct peer educators from different countries around the world. And we'll be training them and supporting them to deliver workshops within their communities. We also have a big focus on virtual learning. Over the past few years, we've had something called the IRENA Student Leaders Program, and this is a virtual training for university students. It's been quite successful, and there's only a number of students we can accommodate in a live program. And so based off this, we're launching soon something called the IRENA eCampus, and these are pre-recorded lectures and courses for self-study. And we've already recorded most of the content, we'll be releasing it soon. But we're also encouraging educators to use some of these materials, perhaps as a starting point within their own lectures. So the materials focus on everything from technology to policy to finance to socioeconomic impacts and benefits. And so there are materials across many different subject areas, and these will be released in the coming months as well. We've also released now an employer skills survey, and this is underway at the moment. It's open until mid-April. And it's being used to gather insights from employers on skills gaps and education and training priorities. So in the links after this, we'll share a link to the survey in case there are employers on this call. It would be wonderful to have your insights. And in the coming months, the survey closes, we'll be gathering this and sharing some of the insights with the educational institutions. So we want the employers to tell us where the gaps are and what are the issues they're seeing. And then we'll be working with the educational institutions to address these gaps. So just to close, joining the Energy Transition Education Network is open. And it's really open to organizations, educational institutions, governments, as I said. And so if you're, I know I think I'm over time, so let me stop there. But if you're interested to learn more, this is my email, slsay.irena.org, or you can reach me at education@irena.org. And
You actually weren't over time.
Oh,
If you want to go
wasn't?
back to that last slide, you can do it. I was just coming in to introduce the next speaker.
Okay. So just to go into it a bit more, especially all of you as universities, we're encouraging you to become part of this network. And the level of engagement can really vary depending on what your focus is. You can actively contribute to some of the working groups we're creating. If you have curriculum and teaching resources, we're creating a repository of existing resources as well as new resources that are being developed. We also want good practice case studies. So what are you doing well? What examples do you have to share when it comes to energy education? And we'll also be having some knowledge exchange opportunities. And I think really the main focus is on demystifying energy, because even within the climate education discussions, a lot of people who are perhaps non-energy specialists tend to be afraid of talking about energy. They don't want to teach about energy. They don't want to talk about energy because it's seen as kind of the purview of the STEM experts. And I think this is one of the things that we're trying to change the mindset on and encourage educators from all disciplines to start tackling the subject, because it is an important one. Thank you, and I'll end there.
Thank you so much. And the main website for that, can you put that into the chat? And you all have such valuable information. We may not have as much time for question and answer, but boy, there's a discussion going on in the chat, which is wonderful. So if the panelists, if you could go into the Q&A and type in answers to the questions that are there, if you haven't yet, that'd be great. So our next speaker is my co-organizer of the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance. And this is a great story of how we were looking at what was going on in the US, and we knew that there were things that needed to happen, and the US Department of Energy and other federal agencies didn't have their budgets yet, couldn't move yet on this. And we said to them, we can't wait. We're just going to start this thing. You can come into the meetings, you can support it if you want, but we need a National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance. So we did some outreach, and then we started having solution summits, and Lorjan will tell you the rest.
Yeah, thanks, Deborah. Glad to be here today and share a little bit about what we're doing in the States. And I will drop a couple links and also my contact information before I wrap up today. So if any of you would like to run with some of these ideas, I'm happy to share what we did and how we made it work, because the effort is well underway with about a year under their belt. So we all know good workforce development doesn't happen by accident. And this is especially true when we need to rapidly scale our workforce, like many of us are trying to do. And even more so when we want to be inclusive of the communities that have historically been left behind. A couple of my co-panelists have mentioned the equity and the just transition piece, which is very important here. So as Deborah mentioned, our collective efforts in the US and globally have resulted in some really great training, really great credentials and other resources. But a couple nonprofit groups in the US, the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, which is focused on clean energy deployment, and the National Council for Workforce Education, which is affiliated with the American Association of Community Colleges, really saw a need, as Deborah said, to connect the dots and address clean energy workforce development for the US more holistically, focusing on every aspect of the process from new learners and workers to employer development and retention of employees. So here today to share information about the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance, in case there's anything about this concept or anything we've done that could be useful in your country or region. So what is the Alliance? As Deborah mentioned, this is an effort that to make it easier for employers to find, develop, and retain skilled workers and increase the diversity across clean energy sectors. At least in the US, this effort is pretty unique in that it is cross-sector. It doesn't just address solar. It doesn't just address energy efficiency or a single technology. It really seeks to address the full spectrum of clean energy technologies we need to decarbonize our economy, right? So our goal is to eliminate wasteful duplication of effort between all of us working in this space. We're all kind of cycling and doing work. We want to make sure that we're all moving in the same direction and not doing the same work where we can leverage each other's successes. And we really want to scale those best practices and resources that are already in place, that have already been tested, whether it's within clean energy or other sectors. We're not the only ones out there training workers. There's other people doing this stuff. And we really want to chart a path forward to address remaining workforce gaps and challenges. So the Alliance is all about knocking down those silos that keep us from working together and uniting all the stakeholders engaged in workforce development that I'm illustrating here on the screen. So you can see the folks engaged in training, education, and credentialing, such as many of the folks on this call. Of course, the employers, the folks in communities, removing barriers for folks to enter the workforce and to receive training and services that they need to be successful in the workforce and in life. And of course, all those other organizations, there's a chat going on about organized labor. Certainly, we want those folks engaged. We want all the folks in adjacent industries, construction, infrastructure work, other people training folks to do similar work to clean energy. So, and as someone was saying earlier, this really helps to ensure that the labor demand and the labor supply are aligned, that the skills that we have happening in the training and education environment are really aligned with what is in demand by employers in the region where it's offered today. And as we mentioned, that the wraparound services, the services and support that people in communities need to take advantage of those opportunities are available for all those who need them. So how has this group gone about doing this stuff? So they've been meeting for over a year. The first convening was in January of 2022. First, we started by really looking at identifying and prioritizing what are the challenges, what are the gaps we're facing in addressing clean energy workforce development, specifically in the States, but we know some of the challenges are shared, whether or not you're in the States or not. And then, as Deb said, we started conducting some solution summits, as this group has been doing, to identify successful projects and programs that should be scaled. There are almost 600 organizations participating in this effort. There are some outcomes of these convenings that we have had, most of them virtual. We've done some great work in this environment that we're in today. We just had one in-person convening last fall. There is information about those convenings on the website that I will share with you in just a moment. And these convenings are grounded in the assumption that the clean energy transition can and should be just and equitable. And our proceedings really acknowledge and seek to address the structural issues, the systemic barriers that we see that are currently preventing that equitable access. The activities continue today. They will continue forward. In fact, the group had a webinar yesterday about a report that we'd like to share with you also today. So some key outcomes we see, this is a new effort, but the value we see so far is the community of practice in and of itself, right? Again, like this group, getting together, sharing ideas, making sure we're not duplicating effort, and that we're sharing all the great resources that are already out there. We do have some key recommendations that the group has after their first year with examples of successful programs and projects to help address some of the gaps that we see. And going forward, do see the true value of the group really coming into strategic engagement of stakeholders who are actually positioned to do the work to address those gaps. So as I mentioned, you can access through the link I'm about to share a report that this group has out. Again, focused on the US market, but a lot of you folks working in workforce development beyond the US are going to do a lot of head nodding. These are not unique to the US problems by and large. And really these recommendations are to help funders, program designers, and those implementing workforce programs like many of you to focus the resources where they can be most impactful and most supportive of a just transition. And you'll also find the report of interest if you'd like to convene a similar effort in your country and region. There's a lot of information about what we did, what we asked folks, and what our proceedings looked like. So with that, I will drop some information in the chat. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Deb, to share this information today.
Thank you. It was great to get an overview, right? Being in the weeds of it every week. And just so you know, LJ, as I call her, and I and Evie are very engaged with the Clean Energy Ministerial, where we're convening policymakers and program developers from different ministries or federal agencies from all over the world. And so if you have, I'm going to show you a slide in a little bit. If you have ministry contacts, I noticed there's some ministries on here today. We want to make sure that they get an invitation. So we'll get to that in a minute, but first our last speaker, Laura, and Laura is going to tell us about sustainable lifestyles, because here's the key here. We've got to create demand. If there isn't consumer demand for sustainable products and processes, instead of unsustainable products and processes, we're not going to get there. So over to you, Laura. I am sorry, we're a bit pushed for time, but if you can keep it to that 5 to 6 minutes, will be great. Thank you.
Don't worry, hopefully I'll manage. I have my clock here, so let's try. So first, we want to start with a quote from the Secretary General that kind of encompasses what we want to do regarding with lifestyles. We know that this is a subject about basic math. There's not enough resources for the way that we're consuming. So we need to have opportunities to recover and live better and lighter. Sustainable lifestyles are key. Why? First, because households emit up to 3/4 of all the emissions are responsible due to the consumption of households and consumers. And then as well, that means that the sustainable lifestyle choices must be available for everyone. So what is a sustainable lifestyle? Well, pretty easily is the lifestyle, are there lifestyles in which they create the least emissions possible. However, that does not mean that it is a universal concept or that we can all achieve sustainable lifestyles in the same way. So it's very dependent on when we are, where we are, how we're living, what stage of our lives we're on. So for example, when we're just getting married, we have a very different lifestyles than when we have a kid. So what it means is that it is something that is changing. It is something that is different for everyone, depending on where they live and who they are. But as well, it is depending on choices. So there is that, component of individual choice that is very important, because when it comes to lifestyles, we actually have a say in it. However, we do say that it is a choice, but it is not a choice that everyone can make. So living sustainably is something that most people aspire to. However, it's not something that most people can do just because they don't have the right services or their cities are not equipped correctly. So that is why sustainable lifestyle is not just about us deciding as individuals what are we going to do and how we're going to get things better, but it's also about seeing the system as a whole and changing and involving all stakeholders in all of the actions that we're trying to promote. So then it starts, how do we get to a sustainable lifestyle? So first, it is really easy to try to think about, well, we convince people. However, that is not really, that is the last step, and it is not just trying to get out there and spread the message, even though we do have the right message and we're convinced and backed up by the science. However, before we start doing advocacy, we need to change the culture and see that we are in a context in which people are convinced and determined and ready to make changes. So that also means reimagining their values, seeing what is it that we are aspiring to as a society. Because, as I said, not everyone has the choice to live sustainably, and those who can, because mostly they have the resources to, are actually choosing to live completely in an opposite way, because we see that the richest 10% is responsible for up to 50% of the emissions of the GHG emissions. So how is it that those people who are a minority are also the ones that are setting up the values and setting up what we need to aspire to? So that needs to be questioned, and it is happening already. And as well, first of all, and before everything else, we need to know that all this change and all of these actions that we're promoting are based in science. So they're coming from, through information that is actually targeting the most effective ways of reducing emissions. So it's not just about saying we need to act, it's saying what do we need to do that would really make a difference. So for example, that it means turning a narrative in which has the sustainability narrative that has favored least impactful activities such as recycling and correct disposal, and start thinking about what we can do that can actually change things, which is basically reduce consumption. That is certainly a taboo to discuss this because, if we talk about reducing consumption in the first place, then we're really thinking about a new way of our production system to work. But in a sense, it is what we're necessarily going to get to, even though we're trying to avoid the subject, because eventually, even though if we become completely circular and we close the loop, if we don't make that circle of the economy a lot smaller, even though if it's completely sustainable and we know and we have fixed all of the ways that production is harmful, if the demand continues to rise, it will still end up being resource intensive, and then we're again at step one and having to solve the problem. So what do? We started, thinking about how do we make decisions actually. So, we have all of the information. It is quite known what's going to happen, the consequences of what's going on, but we're still making the wrong decisions. Why? First of all, because we do not make decisions based on sustainability. So many of all of the things become a priority. So what do we conclude from that? Is that even though it is a very commendable and correct intention to say that people should make decisions based on sustainability, the reality is that they live within context and cultural conditions and pricing and advertising that they cannot really make that a priority. So what has to be done is not that we change the mindsets of people, but that we change the sustainability choices so that they are the ones that make more sense. So they are available, they are affordable, they are the logical choice, and they are the choice that people want to make. So we have a couple of products all based in the Anatomy of Action, which is a social media toolkit, which kind of encompasses the decisions that we can make in 5 domains in which we actually have inherence on. So, and they're also organized by the most effective to the least effective. So everyone can kind of evaluate their life within what they do and where they are, and kind of see what they can do to live more sustainable. So for example, in food, they know that a protein swap is the most effective action they can do. So for example, they can choose to become vegetarian for a day, or if they already are, start choosing to work more on food waste and other options.
So I really hate to do this, but you've got less than a minute left.
Okay, yeah, but so then you can check out the tool. We've done a lot of campaigns, and it is kind of the base from the work behind. So we've also developed 2, here's the results of the campaign. We've reached 22 million people. We're very focused on communications, and that's why we've also done 2 products. One is My Sustainable Living Challenge, which is a game that will be, we're going to have a new version, a global edition. It now has 4 language options in which people just take on the anatomy and respond to questions, or actually commit 2 actions so that they can, improve their lives and learn more about lifestyles. And then this one, which is the learning module on lifestyles that encompasses all of the science behind lifestyles and wants to, invite people to act. It's self-paced, is free, it lasts only 3 hours, and it's completely available. So I will encourage you to use it. And we also encourage teachers to ask their students to make it a part of their their curricula and have it on and personally use it and share it all of that they can. And then, you know, finally, thank you very much. We have here our Instagram. We would love for you to follow. If you have any other questions, we're also trying to work a lot with educators because we have a symposium on creating curricula for business schools on sustainability. So if any of you is interested in participating, we will have a global panel in which we're hoping many of you can share their experience in trying to insert sustainability within your curricula. And thank you very much. Feel free to write and please enter the course and share it with your students. Hopefully they'll find some use in it.
Thank you. We will post Laura's slides. Couldn't you do like a whole session just on this, right? So maybe we can do that in the future.
Well, you know, I'm open, of course.
She's ready. Okay, great. So that was wonderful. What I want to do now is I've got some key resources I need to share with you. We have been answering your questions in the chat. So they are there, which is great. Go ahead and look at the Q&A. That's where we've been typing our answers, and looked under answered questions. And that's where you'll see how we've responded. But now I've got some key resources that I'm going to show you on the slides that will also show up in the chat. So this is just one of many examples we have of career pathways. This is the Solar Career Map, and it was developed by IREC, but it's available to everyone. And so how do you get direct access to each other and all of these wonderful resources you've shared in the chat and we've shared with you? So we have an opt-in form where if you're comfortable sharing your contact information with each other, you can fill out that form that's being put into the chat right now by Evie. And then we will then share that form with everybody who filled out the form so that way you can connect directly to each other, get us out of the middle, and you can create the solutions. And we also have a link to join the virtual community. It was started at UNEP Yay, and we're extending it, of course, with HESI. And so we already have over 4,000 people in there. You will get invites to future solution summits by using that link. That is also going into the chat right now. And we know there are barriers. So, you know, we want to hear what the barriers are that you have. Give people about 30 seconds here to pull up those links we just gave for the virtual community and for the sharing with each other your contact information. But then if you want to put into the chat, what are your barriers on fast tracking solutions for green economy employers? We would love to see that in the chat. Then moving to solutions. There were lots of solutions today. We have a form for you because we know you probably have additional resources that you didn't have time to put into the chat. So if you fill out this form, which is also going into the chat, then we'll be able to compile those resources and help you share them with others. Also, if there's certain resources you want that you do not have, if you can list those in the chat, we will harvest them. But once again, let people access this link first before you start filling out the chat with all of that. One more form. I told you that we're meeting with ministerial staff, governmental agency staff from all the countries of the world, particularly in the areas of planning, policy making, and program staff in the areas of energy, education, employment and labor, industry, economic development, and social affairs and well-being. If you happen to have contacts with any of those staff and any of those ministries in your country or in other countries, please fill out this form. We will share with them the invitation we have to the first convening, which will be on March 30th. One more opportunity. We always are looking for pro bono fellows who will work with us internationally to help create this systemic change. You might want to do something regionally while we do the international or more global systemic change. So if you've got 1 to 2 hours a week, there's a form for you to express your interest in becoming a pro bono fellow, and we would love to have you contribute. And finally, we have a gift, came from 4 UN agencies to us. It's called the Green Learning Network. There you'll find resources. You can connect with each other, share your events. There's a link there of once you've signed up, keep going back to it to see what's new. And You can put in knowledge items like these. We already have dozens of them in there. So you can harvest those knowledge items and put in your own. These are just some other examples. How do you get to there? Well, I'm sorry to say that it is multiple steps, but easy steps to create an account. So we created a instructions for you. So please go ahead. That's the link we're putting in the chat for that. You don't have to worry about completing the profile, but follow all the steps. So look, we have upcoming, and I know I'm going to be done in 1 minute. We have upcoming related solution summits, and one is on aligning research and educational publishing with the SDGs. We're connecting practitioners and policymakers with researchers. So your follow-up for today, sign on to that Green Learning Network platform, fill out all of those links of those forms that relate to what you're interested in terms of being a fellow or connecting to each other or giving us ministerial contacts, and register for the April 5th summit that we're having. That's in addition to the March 22nd event for researchers, authors, educators, practitioners. Okay, and then step 2, get it done, move, whatever you're doing. Don't sit there and armchair pontificate, right? I think you're not that kind of person. You wouldn't be here otherwise. And remember the urgency of this climate crisis. Take action. You can email any questions or comments that you have to greenjobscollab@gmail.com. We do have the power to help create a sustainable future. So now I'm going to ask you, can you put into the chat what you're going to do out of this event today? We really want to hear what your choices are, how you're going to act. So thank you to all the speakers. Thank you to HESI. I don't know, Ola, if you want to give closing remarks, but I say everybody here today, congratulations on all you have done, even more so. Congratulations on all you will do for the planet and the humanity in the near future. And put what you're going to do from today, hopefully not just one thing, into the chat. Thank you. And you guys can look at what each other are doing on the chat. Go ahead, Ola, please.
Yes, thank you so much, Deborah. I just want to echo what you're saying. Huge thanks to you and to all the speakers and for all the insights and resources that you have shared. I think this is exactly what we aimed out for this webinar, to really spread all this information to our HESI community. So thank you so much to that. That's really all I have to say. Just please, if we can maybe share all of these steps and forms, maybe we can share your PowerPoint slides on the website so people can take note of that and see how they can continue this engagement with this action group. And also remind everyone that we have another webinar coming up on 22nd of March. This is the SDG Publishers Compact, so please remember that one. Since you have already signed up for this one, you already signed up for that one as well. So we'll be sending you all of that information, how to join, etc. in due time. And also as sort of a reminder or an announcement that we will have our annual Global HESI Forum this coming July. It's tentatively scheduled for 17 July. This will take place in the margins of the UN's high-level political forum on sustainable development. So please keep checking the HESI website for more information on that. So that's all I had to say, and thank you so much for joining, and have a great rest of the evening or day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. I think we're done for now, and we'll get these slides up there and the recording up on the HESI website, and we will reach out to you all. We will also collect the information from the chat and create resources for you, so you can look forward. Maybe, or Jordan, you can put the link into the chat where the HESI website is, but they all should know it because they registered there, right? Thanks for the hearts. Back at you. The webinar is being recorded and it will be Will it be sent out, Jordan, or will it be posted on the HESI website? In any case, it'll be posted right there. You see
Yes,
that
it
in the
will be
chat?
posted.
Yep. So you can click on that. That'll take you to the page and then you can save it and go back to it later. All right. Thank you, everyone.